It was a relationship born on the battlefield.
They had served together in Iraq. He was a handsome guy, and ladies liked the way he looked in a uniform.
She saw herself being an officer. She saw herself married. She saw herself one day with kids.
But those dreams are shattered when a string of mysterious disappearances rocks their tight-knit Southern community.
I've been calling you for several days, and you ain't return my phone call.
You need to call somebody and let somebody know something, baby. Anybody heard from you?
You got two young women going missing between a week of one another.
This was a successful individual, young, her whole future in front of her.
She received her master's August the 12th, and, you know, it just didn't make sense. 4 days later, you gone.
But as this investigation picks up steam, a deadly discovery will bring everyone's worst fear to fruition.
Oh my God, this is a young girl.
This is a case that you don't normally see people that do this, unless you're Jeffrey Dahmer or somebody that has a very twisted personality.
I hope it's not that girl. Oh, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. He was a demon walking the earth.
Thursday, August 23rd, 2012. It's an early summer morning in a peaceful neighborhood just north of Columbia, South Carolina. But on this day, there's a buzz of excitement in the air.
It was the first day of school, so you had buses back on the road, you had kids walking to school, you had parents walking their kids to school, taking their kids to school.
At a home on the north side of town, a young mother named Kristen Brown is preparing to do just that.
Come on, get buckled up. Mommy's gonna be so late for work.
Okay, Mom.
Did you get your lunch?
Here's this woman, typical morning, getting ready to take her kid to school. While departing, she looks in the neighbor's yard, and what do you see?
Hold on.
There was a body in the front yard.
She was face down in the front yard.
Moments later, Kristen's frantic 911 call reaches area dispatchers.
I just found a dead female, black young female, right next door to my house.
You just found what, ma'am?
A dead, black young female in my neighbor's front yard.
She was in shock, and for a good reason.
It's crazy. Nice neighborhood. It's the first day of school. You know, excited about the school year, excited about doing new things, and someone leaves a body in the front yard of a home. It's crazy.
Even worse, Kristen fears she might recognize the victim.
Jesus Christ, I hope it's not this little girl. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
5 days earlier, a 15-year-old girl named Gabby Swainson had disappeared just a few miles from this location. Her disappearance was all over the news, and police issued a massive manhunt. Kristen had every reason to believe that it was her.
We've got help on the way, ma'am, okay? Just try to stay calm and help be there soon.
Jesus Christ.
But as authorities race to the scene, they know Gabby isn't the only young woman to have gone missing in Columbia during the past 24 hours.
The other young woman's name was Almanita Smith. She was a beautiful 26-year-old woman who was a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army and a master's student. Her family had reported her missing 24 hours earlier.
But just who was this person lying lifeless in the yard? And how had she gotten there? The answer will tear a hole in a family's heart and bring investigators face to face with a monster.
In 21 years of law enforcement, that was absolutely the worst thing that I'd ever heard.
Born in Tuskegee, Alabama in 1986, it was clear there was always something special about Almanita Smith.
She was very outgoing, very bright, compassionate, very smart, had quick wit, and was pretty much a born leader.
Anything she put her mind to and her heart to it, she did it. She was just that go-getter.
In fact, by the time Almanita hit high school, this doe-eyed beauty displayed a drive and maturity well beyond her years.
She was your typical teenager, but when it was time for her to take on life seriously, she took it on seriously, and she had goals. She had things that she wanted to do.
She was just stellar in school.
I mean, that was just her thing. That was real big to her. She was on the basketball team. She was on the track team. She was a wavette or a dance squad for the band. She played tennis.
She actually won homecoming queen. She was turning into this gorgeous little 5'3" woman.
And Almanita believed it was her destiny to serve in the United States military. After high school, she enlisted in the Army.
She saw herself being an officer. She saw herself married. She saw herself one day with kids. But more than anything, she saw herself making sure her mom and her dad were taken care of.
True to form, in just a few short years, Almanita rose to the rank of Staff Sergeant while earning a college degree and serving 2 dangerous tours of duty in Iraq.
She was very driven, very motivated. It's like, what's the point of doing it if you can't be the best at doing it?
After Almanita returned from Iraq, she settled in Columbia, South Carolina for grad school. She joined the Army Reserves, earned an MBA, and began working on another master's in education.
She's a homeowner. By the age of 24, with 2 degrees, MBAs, that's very impressive for someone her age.
She wanted to retire out of the Army. She went to school for business. Once she finished with her military career, she wanted to open up her own little club/restaurant. She just wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Although Almanita dated and had boyfriends over the years, she mostly concentrated on her career and education.
She dated, but that was secondary. She spent most of her time working on herself.
But in the spring of 2012, the blossoming beauty ran into a ghost from her past. 27-year-old California native Marcus Bailey.
Almanita Smith?
Marcus, hey.
Hey, how you doing?
I've been good. How are you?
She had met him during a tour in Iraq.
Here's this guy, Marcus Bailey, another veteran. Handsome, the guy looks great in his uniform, but moreover, he could relate to her. They had something in common, and that was serving in the U.S. Army.
He told Almanita that he was still in the Army and that he was a drill sergeant stationed nearby at Fort Jackson.
So, any plans?
Well, I always had dreams of being a club DJ.
When she met him, you know, he was doing well. He was nice. He's in the military as well. Very sweet, very focused, just a nice guy.
Over the next few months, Almanita and Marcus did their best to stay in touch.
When they would go to parties, they would see each other and talk, casual conversation. But she told me that they wanted to be in a relationship.
I think there was just a period where she met him and kind of moved fast.
Almanita has this nice home, 4 bedrooms. She's 24 years old. She's got everybody but somebody to share this with. He needed a place to stay. She was lonely. They were dating. It only made sense in her mind that, hey, why don't you come live with me?
While it seemed like Almanita's life was a fantasy come true, the summer of 2012 brought with it an even more tangible accomplishment. On August 12th, she earned her master's degree in education from Columbia College.
She had just graduated with her master's degree, and the following week, she was supposed to go through an officer program.
It seemed like life was coming up roses for Almanita. That's why what happened next was so impossible to believe.
Her daddy and her mama was calling. The school had been calling, and that is when they realized something was wrong.
In the summer of 2012, Army reservist Almanita Smith was on the fast track to success in Columbia, South Carolina.
She had just graduated with her master's degree, and she was a top performer. She had the backing of her chain of command. They wanted to see her do great. They knew that she can do great. They just wanted to see exactly what the future held for her.
She was so driven. There are a lot of 25-year-olds that ain't doing nothing And there are a lot of 40-year-olds that haven't completed or even remotely did half of what she had accomplished.
A string of accomplishments that Almanita happily shared with her love interest, Marcus Bailey.
She had reconnected with Marcus in the spring of 2012. They started dating, and he eventually moved into Almanita's home.
Everything was going great for her.
But that good life was about to take an unexpected and mysterious turn. It begins the morning of Wednesday, August 22nd. Almanita is scheduled to be in a class for officer candidate school, but she never arrives.
Whatever she set forth, all her goals, she wanted to accomplish them. So if there was someplace she had to be on time, she was gonna be there on time. Her classmates in the program was calling her, trying to find out where she was. It was unheard of.
Hey, Almanita, you weren't in class today, so I was seeing what was going on. Give me a call back.
That was completely unlike her. She was not gonna not go to school. She was a stickler for her responsibilities and what she needed to do. She would have not gone to school unless something had happened.
Almanita's classmates aren't the only ones concerned about her whereabouts.
Her dad had been calling her, and her dad couldn't get her. The school had been calling for Nita. They couldn't get her.
It was extremely out of character for her not to be in contact with her parents. Like, I know she talked to her daddy every night, like every day.
By that afternoon, there was still no sign of Almanita. It's then that her father, Harold Davis, makes a decision.
I called Nita's mom, and I called Richland County Sheriff Department. Ma'am, my name is Harold Davis. I'm calling from Tuskegee, Alabama. I have a daughter. My name is Almanita Smith. I haven't talked to her since Friday, and we normally talk every day or every other day. And I want to know if I can get someone to go by her home and check and see what's going on.
Okay, Mr. Davis, we're going to send an officer out there to see if they can try to make contact with her.
They send a deputy out, goes to the house, knocks on the door. Marcus answers the door.
Hi, I'm Officer O'Donnell. We're here to do a welfare check at this address.
For?
For an Almanita Smith. You mind if we come on in?
Of course.
Are you aware where she is?
Well, she was here early today, but she went shopping. I wasn't aware that she was missing.
He was at the home by himself. He said that Almanita had left earlier that day at about 11 o'clock and had gone shopping. He said that she received a phone call from someone. He didn't know who. He said she went into a dark-colored Toyota and left. He didn't see the driver. The driver didn't come in. The driver just beeped the horn from outside and drove off.
Marcus says, well, she's still not back. Matter of fact, and putting it on the speaker, he tries to give her a call, doesn't answer the phone. Then he even sends a text message, but yet no response.
Do you mind if we look around?
Yeah, of course.
She did a cursory search of the residence. There at that point, didn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary.
While Marcus is talking to them, he remains calm, talks to them in a normal tone, and officers being trained to spot signs of domestic violence or struggle. When they looked at Marcus, there were no signs, there were no cuts, there were no bruises, no scratches. So things appeared to be as normal.
Well, thanks. If you hear from Almanita, do you mind having her call her father? He's pretty concerned about her.
Yeah, of course.
But just what had happened to Almanita? As the hours tick by that evening, no one seems to have an answer.
I called a couple of her friends, and they hadn't seen her.
At this point, nobody knows who this potential guy in this dark car is. Family doesn't know, Marcus doesn't know. We're just following a story down a rabbit hole.
She would have not gone away with someone without someone knowing. I mean, she would have called.
But for officers at the Richland County Sheriff's Department, there's further cause for concern. Almanita isn't the only young African-American woman to have gone missing in Columbia this week.
At this same time, there was a missing teenager that had been missing in the neighborhood.
5 days earlier, a young girl named Gabby Swainson had disappeared. She was all over the news. This was a reoccurring story. Nobody knew where she was.
She had been missing for a while. We had believed that she had been kidnapped by someone that's close to the home.
They had organized searches, manhunts. You know, people were out trying to figure out where was this young girl.
Is it possible these two disturbing disappearances are connected? At this point, no one knows for certain.
Almanita's friends and family were deeply concerned. What are the odds of two young African-American women going missing in the same area in the same week?
But in less than 24 hours, a sickening discovery will close a chapter on one of these two missing person cases and open the door to a baffling murder investigation.
It was a shocker to me. I got a phone call from my sister, and it was awful.
That was the worst day of my life.
In less than a week, two young African-American women have gone missing in Columbia, South Carolina. The first person was a 15-year-old cheerleader named Gabby Swainson. Then, just 5 days after her disappearance, 26-year-old Almanita Smith, a beloved Army veteran, vanished as well.
Richland County is kind of a small town atmosphere. It's a very small town. People know each other, people care for each other. That's one of the things that we're known for. And you have something like this happen, it scared the community.
It was a real sense of helplessness. I didn't know what to do.
Almanita's father, Harold, is less indecisive. On the night of August 22, 2012, he makes plans to drive up from his home in Alabama to search for his daughter.
I just felt something bad. I was gonna leave. I started to leave that night, but I really wasn't prepared. So I was gonna leave the next morning.
Harold and his family spend a restless evening in Alabama. But on August 23rd, before they can leave town, a discovery 300 miles away changes everything.
At 6:45 a.m. on August 23rd, a woman named Kristen Brown was leaving her home in North Columbia to take her daughter to school when she saw a body lying in her neighbor's yard.
Kristen's ensuing 911 call leaves little speculation as to the identity of the female victim.
Oh my God, this is a young girl. Hey, we're getting everyone on the way, all right? She's a cute girl. Oh my God.
She thought maybe that was the missing person that we were looking for. This was the missing teen.
Everybody thought it was Gabby Swainson.
That's the first thing that came to my head. We found her, unfortunately.
Oh my God.
But just before first responders arrive at the scene, a man races from the front door of 613 Heron Glen Drive. It's Marcus Bailey.
Marcus, he comes outside, and his reaction immediately is he starts sobbing. He's emotional. She was face down in the front yard. He rolled her over and was able to recognize her.
The victim isn't Gabby Swainson as everyone fears, but Marcus's girlfriend, Almanita Smith.
She's laying face down. He goes out and throws a blanket over the body. He was having chest pains, having a reaction to seeing the corpse.
Stand on up, bud. Come with me.
He was having some kind of an attack. They took him to the hospital to get him evaluated.
With Almanita's grieving boyfriend now removed from the scene, investigators take their first look at their victim. And what they see isn't pretty.
It was very hot outside, and Almanita was in this state of decomposition.
The body was in a decomp state of excessive swelling, especially around the face. The tongue was swelled out of her mouth. Her limbs, you could tell, had an excessive amount of fluid in them, along with the abdomen area and the legs.
Everything starts to decompose at a different rate, but you can tell the process is in motion. Again, it's South Carolina in the summer. It was August. It's hot.
Any obvious sign of how she was killed?
But Almanita's state of decomposition presents investigators with a problem.
They couldn't get a definite cause of death. Probably could have been a strangulation. She wasn't stabbed, she wasn't shot.
And then there's the question of how Almanita's body ended up where it did. Could the mystery man she allegedly left her home with the day before have intentionally placed her here?
This is an odd case. This is a case that you don't normally see people that do this, unless you're Jeffrey Dahmer or somebody that has a very twisted personality.
It suggests some kind of message. Why would someone take her away and cause her harm and then bring her back and lay her in the front yard without there being some kind of significance to that?
While Almanita's body is transported to the Richland County Medical Examiner's office for an autopsy, news of her death has reached friends and family.
Her death, great loss. It It did exactly like a tsunami, an earthquake. She touched so many people's lives. It devastating.
I was called at 9 o'clock that morning and drove straight to her house. I mean, it was a surreal experience for me.
While those close to Amanita begin to converge at her home, Detective Martin heads to the hospital to have a chat with Marcus Bailey.
At that point, he said that he wanted to speak with us.
I know this is a very difficult time for you, but are you comfortable answering some questions right now?
Yes, sir, I'll try.
He said Amanita was a really good person. She had just graduated from college, and she was in the process of being selected for an officer's position in the Army.
While Marcus seems genuinely upset by Amanita's death, investigators want to hear his story again.
We asked him the last time he saw her again. He said he saw her on the 22nd at about 11:30, and he said that she had left with this mysterious person.
I didn't really get a good look at his face.
So you're in a relationship with Amanita together, yet you're okay with her going off with a strange man?
It's kind of complicated.
He said that they had an open relationship. Sometimes they would be together, sometimes they'd be with other people. And she was allowed to kind of do whatever she wanted to do.
She still allowed me to live there as long as I paid the rent.
But it's what Marcus says next that's the most alarming detail to investigators.
He said, well, she was picking up men on Craigslist. Men were buying her things.
The obvious fear is that maybe Amanita met somebody online, and that this person isn't just responsible for her death, but Gabby Swainson's disappearance as well.
It's not unusual for people online to exaggerate the truth about themselves a bit, let alone be totally opposite of who they really are.
But had this beautiful Army veteran really waded into the dangerous waters of online dating? That answer and more was about to swamp this investigation, leaving detectives to sort out the carnage of ill-chosen love.
This isn't what you do to people you love. This isn't how you treat people you love.
On August 23, 2012, a family's worst nightmare comes to fruition when missing 26-year-old Army reservist Amanita Smith is found dead in the front yard of her home.
She had a bright future. Anything she wanted to do, she could have done.
It sickens you because you think about the victim, and she had a very successful future. She had a very big future. She was doing so many things to make herself better, to prepare for her life.
It's a life that everyone agrees has ended far too soon, making detectives more determined than ever to catch Amanita's killer. But having just interviewed her boyfriend, Marcus Bailey, identifying this individual may not be easy.
Marcus said he and Amanita were in an open relationship and that she was meeting other people online. He said Amanita left the day before her death with a man he had never seen before.
Back at the crime scene, investigators begin questioning Amanita's friends and family for the first time. When investigators ask about Amanita's dating life, they find it difficult to believe that the straight-laced overachiever would have been so reckless.
She don't meet strangers. She don't meet people on dating sites, Facebook, Instagram, or any of those things. That's not who she was.
As for her relationship with Marcus, they say at first, Amanita had a hard time resisting the charms of her strapping soldier.
I think she met him, and he's one of those people where if that's your thing, he kind of looked right on paper.
But others say their first impression of Marcus left much to be desired.
I can honestly say when I met this character, I was not happy. And I told her that. I thought he was a loser.
The way he dressed, the way he drank all the time, the way he interacted with her. I mean, he was just a thug. That's the bottom line. He was a thug.
But Amanita apparently saw something in Marcus that she liked, and she wasn't one to back down from a challenge.
She has a very good heart, very big heart. Maybe she could help him change. That is the impression that I got, that she could help him change.
For the first few months, friends say it seemed like their lives were on solid ground. But then Amanita learned the truth about Marcus's military record.
She found out about some stuff that he was keeping from her about his past.
The military is really a small world. It's like 2 degrees of separation.
And the truth of the matter, friends say, is that Marcus had been living a lie all along.
Marcus Bailey had been dishonorably discharged for fraternization, meaning that he was having relationships with the enlisted personnel that he was supposed to train.
He was sleeping with privates. When you're a drill sergeant, you are not supposed to have any type of sexual contact at all.
A fact Marcus failed to share with Almanita.
Last text she sent me about him, she said, I found out that he was not who he say he was.
He had let her believe that he was being demoted, but he had already been kicked out in the whole nine because, you know, the military doesn't play that anymore.
I heard that he was actually getting up, putting on his uniform every day like he was going to work. And he was still representing himself as if he was an active duty soldier.
He got kicked out. He didn't have anywhere to go. He couldn't find a job. He wasn't working or anything.
But besides misrepresenting his own work and military record, it turns out Marcus had another secret. And this one, friends say, was a doozy.
Who's this Janelle that keeps texting you?
Nobody.
Nobody. I don't believe you. Who is she?
Marcus was in fact married to a woman that lived in Colombia.
Your wife?
Although he was estranged from his wife, he had a young son, and she was pregnant with their second child.
When were you going to tell me that?
It's over with.
It's over with.
Yes.
She started to see him and what was going on with him for who he was and had decided she didn't want that to be a part of her life.
Come on, baby.
Don't baby me. We're done. You can pack your stuff and you can go.
When she finally found out, she wanted him to move out.
Where am I go, huh?
But she felt bad because he didn't have a place to go. So she just let him stay there, move into the other room until he was able to get on his feet.
She was trying to help him.
As for the contention that Almanita and Marcus might have had an open relationship, her family doesn't buy it.
Never. Never. So either she was with you or she was without you.
To investigators, Marcus sounds like a cancer in Almanita's life. But that still didn't mean their topsy-turvy relationship had culminated in violence. Then, on August 24th, detectives receive Almanita's autopsy report.
4 to 7 days.
Her body had been dead for days. She had been in that state of decomposition. It just wasn't possible that she was alive and well and walking the day before at noon. The lack of the insects being on her suggests that she wasn't outside. It looks more like she was stored in a house.
But as another piece of this investigation falls into place, there's a far darker chapter of this story that's yet to be told. One so terrible, it's unforgettable.
It's like looking at the devil, like soulless, like there was nothing there.
An autopsy report has just found that 26-year-old military reservist Almanita Smith died at least 3 days before her body was discovered in the front yard of her Columbia, South Carolina home. A fact that seems to contradict Almanita's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Marcus Bailey's statement to police.
He said he saw her on the 22nd at about 11:30, and she was getting dressed up and leaving the house in this mysterious car. The position of the body and where fluid was inconsistent with what he was saying.
But phone records offer investigators another insight into Almanita's love life.
We tried to follow up with, well, who would this person be, this mysterious phone call? Well, there wasn't a phone call there that came in.
In fact, what Almanita's phone records do show is that her family and friends became concerned about her whereabouts as early as August 17th.
Trying to get in contact with you. I hope everything's okay. Yeah, but need to call me back. 2 days. This is ridiculous. If you're going to go on a disciplinary act, you need to let everybody know.
Yeah, you need to call somebody and let somebody know something, baby. Anybody heard from you, everybody's calling around. You let somebody know if you're all right.
We believe that she was last seen on the 16th, late hours of the 16th.
But just what transpired between the time Almanita had disappeared and the time her body was found on August 23rd? To unravel that mystery, detectives pull Almanita's bank and credit card records.
So we've got charges on her card during the time the autopsy report says that she's dead, including one in North Carolina. What do you think of the chances? We've got some videos.
When police review the security cam footage, it's not Almanita they see on a 6-day shopping spree.
On video, we have images of Marcus using the credit cards.
There were clothing receipts where he had gone and made some purchases with her credit card. I believe there was a couple other receipts there. There were ATM receives.
Then on August 19th, Marcus's 27th birthday, he really dropped some cash.
He went to a nightclub. When he started spending money at this nightclub, the bill was close to $500.
He had a birthday party for himself. Bought out sections in the club and bought out bottles and was just buying bottles for people.
The next night, he takes them to North Carolina. And again, he's using Almanita's credit cards. And they go into a nightclub and they spend another large sum of money, and he takes everybody out to breakfast.
And this was during the period that her father couldn't get a hold of her.
In light of their growing suspicion, detectives decide to execute a search of Almanita's home. Almost immediately, they notice something very odd.
There was a lot of air fresheners. A lot of air fresheners in there.
You're almost smacked in the face with this air freshener. There was just so many different smells and coverings going on in this room. They were competition. It was not so much nauseating, but it was just overwhelming when you first walked in the door.
But underneath all that industrial aroma is a smell seasoned investigators are all too familiar with.
You smell that?
Yeah.
It was a decomp odor. It was the smell of death.
There's nothing like it. There's no mistaking it. You smell it once, you'll know again 20 years down the road. When you smell it, you'll know. You can't mask it.
When I opened up the dryer, there was a blanket, just like the one that had been placed over her body by Marcus Bailey. And the smell of decomp coming off of that was excessive.
I think we call them the cadaver dogs.
I think you're right.
This is a dog that looks for decaying flesh and human flesh. It doesn't look for anything else other than that.
As the dog makes its way around the home, its well-trained nose soon locks in on two specific rooms, Almanita's master bedroom and a spare bedroom down the hall.
It alerts to this room, and it alerts to this bedding, and it alerts to the different parts of the house, saying that a body had been stored there.
If the dog could talk, it would have definitely said, this has been here for a while.
Investigators suspect the transporting of the body caused the pungent odor to waft through the house, which explains why officers didn't smell the stench during their initial cursory search. When investigators searched the garage, it appears that Marcus had been preparing to make a fast getaway.
His clothing was all in bags next to the car in the garage. Inside the car were her credit cards, her military ID, and other things.
While officers continue their search of the premises, they know one burning mystery is finally over.
The evidence was telling us specifically that it was not a whodunit. It was obvious that he was the one that had done this, the one that had killed her.
That afternoon, police arrest 27-year-old Marcus Bailey for the death of his former lover, Almanita Smith.
He was arrested at the hospital. I was mad. I was really mad.
I don't think this is domestic violence, and that's something that I've kind of been on the fence about since it's happened. This was just murder, flat out, cold-blooded murder.
While family and friends try to come to grips with the chilling truth, the full spectrum of Marcus's betrayal would soon be illuminated and would shine a light on pure evil.
The dude just had to be nuts. Couldn't be no other explanation besides that you crazy. But then you get out and you live in life while she dead and gone. The fact that he picked up a woman and brought her back to her home was the part that was sickening.
On July 23, 2013, 27-year-old Marcus Bailey's murder trial gets underway inside a Columbia, South Carolina courtroom. Marcus stands accused of killing his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Army reservist Almanita Smith, in August of 2012, a crime that sickens the entire community.
I never would have thought I would be burying my baby. To know that someone, this young man, Marcus Bailey, decided to play God, he took a lot from me.
She had a bright future. She had the world. Anything she wanted to do, she could have done. And he took that.
Prosecutors say Almanita's murder was one final betrayal in a rocky romance rife with lies and false promises.
Marcus wasn't in the military as he led Almanita to believe. In fact, he was dishonorably discharged and wasn't working. And he was still married to another woman with a baby on the way. In a nutshell, Marcus wasn't the man Almanita thought he was.
Here we have two different people. You've got Almanita, whose military career is growing. She's getting commissioned as an officer in the Army. She just finished college. She owned her own home. She owned her own car. She was being successful and had a mission and a dream. And you've got Marcus. He's got nothing.
I think he was jealous of her.
And while Almanita's head was probably telling her to let Marcus go, it was her heart, prosecutors say, that enabled Marcus to remain in her home.
He didn't have anywhere to go. He didn't have any money. He didn't have a job, couldn't get a job. She was just helping him to get back on his feet.
I believe Almanita had drawn a line in the sand. You're gonna mow the yard. You're living here for free. You're gonna do this.
Prosecutors believe Marcus balked at Almanita's demands sometime on the night of August 16th, 2012.
They had guests that evening who came over on the 16th.
So, when are you gonna mow the lawn?
I told you I'd get to that.
Get to it when?
And Marcus was saying that he wasn't going to mow the yard. It was his birthday. He didn't want to mow the grass the next day.
They were arguing during that time about him not doing his share around there and so forth. I believe that he probably murdered her that night. Probably after the friend left, they had an argument, and that's when it occurred.
I'm sick and tired of you always complaining all the damn time. You always damn complaining about every single thing.
We'll never know if it was just an argument that escalated or if he planned to kill her that night. And that we won't know because we weren't in the room, and I can't ask Almanita.
Do not. Yo!
Get off of me!
I said, what? Shut up!
She's not breathing. You didn't call 911. You didn't try to help her. You didn't try to save her. You just let her rot like she was nothing.
He didn't have her nagging at him anymore. He was able to do what he wanted to, and he did. He went and partied all week, and he spent all her money.
I just think it was insane. It further cemented to me what his motive was. Like, you just wanted her money.
But prosecutors say the depths of Marcus's betrayal were truly sickening.
When he goes out and parties with the nightclub, he's picked up some random girl and had sex in Almanita's car. And then he goes and he picks up the clerk at the clothing store, and he takes her back and has sex with her in Almanita's home. We were able to validate that. She did have sex at that time, but she became suspicious a little bit about him because he wouldn't let her go upstairs.
Let's go upstairs.
And she was like, well, let's go upstairs to the bedroom. He wouldn't let her go upstairs.
We know that he had sexual relations with another female in the house when the body was upstairs.
In 21 years of law enforcement, that was absolutely the worst story and the worst thing that I'd ever heard. Being there, animal, sure, sheer animal.
This twisted trip finally came to an end on August 22nd.
The father had called him on the 22nd, had called 911, and then I think the rush kicked in that it was time to place the body out front.
A theory, prosecutors assert, that's bolstered by the trove of evidence that police recovered.
There was video footage of Marcus using Almanita's car and credit card. There were also positive hits by the police cadaver dog inside the home and on the blanket recovered inside the dryer. The evidence that Almanita died inside the house and was stored there for multiple days was overwhelming.
But despite what looks like an impossible case, Marcus's defense attorney does what he can under the circumstances.
It was the defense's idea that, yeah, I did do a lot of bad things. I may have cheated on this person. I may have used this woman's credit cards. I may have brought other women into the house, but that doesn't mean I killed her.
They wanted to attack the cadaver dog, and they wanted to attack the science, and they wanted to attack the neighbors and the witnesses and the friends, and they wanted to say all these people were just, randomly had gotten together to kind of do this to Marcus and cause Marcus all this grief.
Finally, on July 31st, 2013, the case goes to the jury. 3 hours later, they return with a verdict: guilty.
Marcus Bailey was sentenced to 50 years in prison.
50 years sounds like there's a hope that you might get out. It just feels like there's hope that you might live to get out, and I don't want him to live to get out. I want him to die in prison.
He's a sociopath, calculated, cold-blooded killer is what he is. I hope he rots in jail. I really do.
For Almanita's friends and family, the punishment can never fit the crime. nor fully explain the actions of a wolf hiding in sheep's clothing.
Was it worth it? Was it worth taking her life? You know, was the outcome worth you taking somebody so rare, so special, you know, from this earth?
He didn't just take anybody. He took somebody that was special. She was an asset to everybody she touched, and that's who he took.
When you look at me, you don't see me. You see God's grace and mercy. That sustains me every day. There are times I feel like I just want to lose my mind, but I know I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay.
But in the wake of this tragedy, while Amanita's family was still healing, the residents of Columbia, South Carolina were forced to weather another tough blow.
A boyfriend of Gabby Swainson's mother, the teenager that disappeared the same week that Amanita did, ultimately confessed to killing Gabby and was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
There was no connection between Gabby Swinson's case and Amanita's case, but the good news is both families got justice in the end.
Staring at the bizarre tableau before him. A Roman gladiator and a police officer standing in his living room. Dell clutched his chest. My God, I thought you was a real policewoman. You nearly gave me a coronary. What are you doing here? You said you was going out. We were going out. Rodney stammered, frantically trying to cover his bare, pale legs with the toy sword. We came back. Why are you dressed like that? Dell demanded, his eyes wide with confusion, like a couple of lollies. Cassandra crossed her arms, deeply unimpressed. Isn't it obvious? Derek, we are role-playing. Oh, I see, Dell said slowly, a smirk beginning to tug at the corners of his mouth. Right, a bit early for a fancy dress party, isn't it? 5:30. It's an early party, Rodney lied desperately. Cassandra's ex-boss at the bank invited us. And who are you supposed to be? Rotters? Dell asked, circling his brother, inspecting the plastic armor. Spartacus with piles. I am Russell Crowe, Rodney declared indignantly. Dell burst into roaring laughter. Russell Crowe, you look like a whippet in a leather harness. Go on, then, you two, off to your party. Have fun. Actually, Dell suddenly remembered, his face turning serious. You can't go out. I need you to stay here. Rodney. What? Why? I'm expecting a very, very important phone call tonight regarding a massive consignment of goods. I have to go meet Monkey Harris, and I need you here to answer the phone and take the order. But Dell, we're in the middle of therapy. Business before pleasure, Mr. Managing Director, Dell reminded him firmly. You took the job. Now take the responsibility. I'll be back by midnight. Oh, and Russell? Dell paused at the door, grinning wickedly. Don't conquer Gaul without me. He slammed the door, leaving the gladiator and the policewoman to sit in silence on the floral sofa, the mood thoroughly and permanently ruined. Chapter 7, The Rainbow Road. Thursday night arrived, and with it came the moment Del Boy had been building toward to save their financial skins. He had actually managed to pass the auditions and get onto Gold Rush. The studio lights were blinding, the audience was roaring, and the host, Jonathan Ross, was bouncing around the stage with manic energy. Sitting in the green room, Del wiped a layer of sweat from his forehead. He was wearing his best suit, a sharp gray number with a subtle pinstripe. He looked the part of the successful businessman, even if his bank account was currently weeping. Welcome to another edition of the show that is taking the country by storm. Jonathan Ross yelled to the cameras. This is the fastest game show on TV. This is Thursday. This is live. And this is Gold Rush. Del was introduced alongside to other contestants. Mike, a financial advisor from Merseyside, and Janice, an amateur opera singer from Newquay. Through a combination of sheer luck, quick reflexes, and his competitors' catastrophic errors, Del managed to navigate the early rounds. He guessed his way through a question about African mountains Kilimanjaro. Any idiot knows that Fuji make cameras, and survived a challenge from Janice that doubled his money. He was on a winning streak. The studio audience was firmly behind the charismatic, fast-talking Londoner. The lights around the stage changed from green to blue to purple as he advanced up the prize ladder. Derek, Jonathan Ross said, the tension music pulsing in the background. You are doing incredibly well. You are currently sitting on 25,000 pounds. The audience gasped and applauded. Del swallowed hard. 25 grand. It was more than half of what they owed the taxman. It was a lifeline. But now, we reach the penalty question, Jonathan continued, his tone turning serious. This question is worth 50,000 pounds. Get this right, and you play for the grand prize of 100,000. But get it wrong, and you lose everything. You drop back to zero. Del's mouth felt like sandpaper. Let's ave it, Jonathan. He who dares wins. All right, for 50,000 pounds. Here is the question. The giant screen behind them flashed the text. Which classical guitarist wrote the opera The Child and the Enchantment? A Ravel. B. Segovia. C. Rodrigo. Del stared at the screen. The names swam before his eyes. He knew about as much regarding classical guitarists and obscure operas as he did about quantum physics. He was a man of the pub jukebox, not the Royal Albert Hall. I think I know this one, Jonathan. Del bluffed, playing to the crowd. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I think it's Ravel. Or, I keep thinking, it could be Segovia. Then again, it might be Rodrigo. Jonathan smiled. Well, Derek, you're right. It's definitely one of those three. The audience chuckled. Del felt a cold sweat prickle his neck. He couldn't risk it. Not 50 grand. Well, in that case, Jonathan, Del said, his voice tightening, I'm going to have to use me old SOS lifeline, aren't I? I think that's probably wise. Jonathan agreed. Who would you like to be your savior tonight? Derek. My brother, Rodney. He's got to GCE's. He's the managing director of our firm. A very smart boy. Okay, let's get Rodney on the line. Back in the flat in Peckham, Rodney was miserably watching the television, still wearing his Russell Crowe gladiator tunic, having been unable to figure out how to unbuckle the complex leather straps. The phone on the table rang shrilly. "Oh, piss off, Mickey," Rodney shouted at the phone, assuming it was another prank call. "You're getting on my tits now." He snatched the receiver. "Hello. Hello, is that Rodney?" "Yes, it is. And I know it's you, Mickey Pierce, so you can shove it. Rodney, this is Jonathan Ross at the Gold Rush Studio." Rodney froze. The voice matched the television exactly. The studio audience's laughter echoed slightly out of sync on the live broadcast. "Oh, my God," Rodney gasped, dropping his toy sword. "Hi, Jonathan. How are you?" "I'm just fine. I've got Derek here, and he's on 50,000 pounds." Rodney's knees buckled. He sank onto the sofa. "You're kidding." "I'm deadly serious. But he's got a problem with the 50,000-pound question, and he has chosen you as his savior. Listen carefully. You'll have 20 seconds to answer." Dill's desperate voice came over the line. "Rodney, for the love of God, concentrate." Hold on, Rodney said, his trotter instincts kicking in despite the panic. "What's in this for me? I'm the MD. I need a cut. I'll make sure you get a drink, you plonker. Just answer the question," Dell yelled. Jonathan read the question. Which classical guitarist wrote the opera The Child and the Enchantment? Was it Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Rodney's mind raced. He had taken music appreciation at night school for 3 weeks to impress a girl. He closed his eyes. The memory surfaced through the fog. Ravel, Rodney said with utter certainty. "How sure are you?" Dell asked, practically praying. 100%, Derek, Ravel. "Good boy, Rotters," Dell sighed with relief. He turned to the host, brimming with renewed confidence. "There you go, Jonathan. He knows his classics. I'll go with that. It's Ravel." The studio lights dimmed. A solitary spotlight hit Jonathan Ross. He looked at his card, then at Dell. "Derek, you don't have to take his answer. You know that, don't you? You can still change your mind." No, I know." Dell smiled, relaxing. "But he knows what he's talking about. It's Ravel. Lock it in." Jonathan took a deep breath. "Derek, that was the wrong answer." The studio fell dead silent. "What?" Dell whispered. "It was Segovia," Jonathan said apologetically. "No," Dell said, his voice trembling. "No, Rodney said it was Ravel. I know he did, but he was wrong. Bad luck. Dell, you've used up all your options. You lose the 50,000 pounds, and you leave us with nothing but your 1 pound entry prize. You're frozen out of the game." Dell stared blindly at the cameras. He didn't hear the audience's sympathetic groans. He didn't hear Jonathan introducing the next contestant. The world had simply stopped turning. 50,000 pounds. Gone because of Rodney. In a blind, unthinking rage of sheer despair, Del kicked out at the nearest object, his foot connected solidly with his contestant podium. The heavy structure wobbled, tipped, and crashed to the studio floor in a shower of sparks and broken plastic. Security rushed the stage. Del was escorted out of the building, a broken man clutching a 1-pound coin. Chapter 8, The Final Twist. The atmosphere in Nelson Mandela House was toxic. It was a silence so thick you could carve it with a chainsaw. Rodney sat on the sofa, still clad in his ridiculous gladiator outfit, holding his head in his hands. Cassandra sat beside him, rubbing his back soothingly, while Raquel furiously scrubbed dishes in the kitchen, punishing the porcelain for those failures. I was certain, Rodney whispered to the floor. I was so certain it was Ravel. Rodney, you did your best, Cassandra said softly. It was a stupid, obscure question. And Del was okay, wasn't he? Rodney asked, seeking some shred of comfort. He didn't make too much of a scene on live national television. Well, Cassandra winced until he kicked the podium over. It looked like he broke the buzzer system. Jonathan Ross had to pick it up while they cut to a commercial. Where is Del? Rodney asked. It had been hours since the broadcast ended. I haven't a clue, Raquel called from the kitchen, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. At the end of the show, he just disappeared into the London night, abandoned his child and his partner in an area of the city we've never been in before. Thankfully, the studio felt sorry for us and paid for a cab home. Just then, the front door clicked open. Del shuffled in. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 hours. His suit was crumpled, his hair disheveled, and he carried the distinct aroma of cheap street corner hot dogs and profound defeat. He didn't look at any of them. He just walked to the armchair and collapsed into it. What the hell happened to you? Raquel demanded, marching into the room with a wet dishcloth. I went out, Del mumbled, staring at the blank television screen. Oh, good, long as I know. Del, Rodney started, his voice cracking. I'm sorry. I could have sworn it was Ravel. I really thought it was. And so could Cassandra, couldn't you? Del asked, his voice eerily calm, lacking its usual fire. Yes, I could. Cassandra defended her husband. Del finally looked at them. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow, crushing despair. Well, you're both a pair of dipsticks, then, aren't you? And as for you, he pointed a shaking finger at Rodney, you are never, ever going to borrow my Capri again. Ever. Del, please. And that bone marrow you mentioned earlier, Del continued, his voice rising slightly. You can forget it. Keep it. Because obviously, everyone with half a brain knows that Ravel makes shoes. It was a trick question, and you fell for it like a ton of bricks. Shoes. Rodney blinked. Maurice Ravel was a French composer. Dell. I don't care if he was a French baker, Dell shouted, finally snapping. He didn't write the bloody opera, did he? Segovia did. I lost 50 grand. For the rest of my life, getting that question wrong in front of my family, my friends, and the entire British nation is going to be the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to me. He glared at Rodney's leather outfit, although coming home to find my managing director dressed as an extra from a Sword Dance Sandals epic is a close second. The telephone rang. It was a harsh, jarring sound that made them all jump. Nobody moved to answer it. They were paralyzed by the sheer exhaustion of the day's events. Hello, Cassandra finally answered, picking up the receiver. Yes, he's here. Can I ask who's calling, please? She covered the mouthpiece, her eyes widening. Dell, it's the producer of Gold Rush. A man named Bill. He wants to talk to you. Dell groaned, burying his face in his hands. Oh, my God. What's he want? I bet it's about that podium I kicked over. I bet they're going to sue me for criminal damage now, haven't they? It's just the icing on the cake. He reluctantly took the phone. All right, I'll speak to him. Hello. Yes, this is Derek Trotter. Send me the bill for the plastic. I'll pay it in installments. He listened. The color slowly drained from his face, and then, miraculously, began to rush back in. His eyes widened. His jaw went slack. What? No. Dell stammered. He said there's been a mistake. Rodney sat up straight, the leather straps of his armor creaking loudly. A mistake. And it was Ravel? Dell asked the voice on the phone, his voice trembling with a mixture of shock and dawning joy. He covered the phone and turned to Rodney, a manic grin splitting his face. Rodney, the producer says there was an error in their research department. The question was flawed. You were right. It was Ravel. I knew it, Rodney shouted, leaping up and punching the air with his toy sword. I knew I was right. Dell turned back to the phone, his confidence returning in a tidal wave. Yeah, I'm still here. Bill. Yeah, he said I can take the 50,000 pounds as an apology and go back on the show next week to play for the 100 grand. Yes. Dell did a little jig in the middle of the living room. Raquel gasped, clapping her hands over her mouth. They were saved. They were actually saved. But then, the pub jukebox from the Nag's Head echoed loudly through the telephone line. Dell heard the distinct sound of a pool cue hitting a ball, and a muffled, snickering laugh that sounded remarkably like Mickey Pierce. Dell's face hardened. The joy evaporated instantly, replaced by a cold, furious certainty. Oh, have a day off, will you, you lot? Dell sneered into the phone. Dell, what are you doing? Rodney asked, confused. Who do you think this is? Dell said to the phone, his voice dripping with venom. "Hey, look, I can hear the jukebox in the pub in the background. It's bloody Mickey Pierce again, ain't it? Trying to pull another prank on the Sultan of Brunei's right-hand men." "Del, are you sure?" Cassandra asked nervously. "I'm positive," Del shouted, highly offended. "I'm going to move." "No, no, no. Get to the back of the queue. Mickey, you're not having me over twice in 1 week." Del puffed his chest out, a righteous, vengeful anger taking over. "Don't worry about the money, Bill. Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what we would like you to do with our winnings. Since you're so generous, give all the £50,000 to charity. Yeah, every single penny of it." Rodney screamed, diving across the sofa to grab the phone. "Del, no." Del easily pushed his skinny brother away, still talking into the receiver. "And if you phone here once again with your stupid pranks, Mickey, I'm going to come down to the Nag's Head and kick your arse into shredded duck. Goodbye." Del slammed the phone down with a triumphant thud. "See, that's how you deal with pranksters. Show 'em you don't care." The room was completely, utterly silent. The air was thick with a new, terrifying kind of tension. "Del," Rodney whimpered, pointing a trembling finger at the television screen in the corner. They had left the TV on, muted, tuned to the 24-hour news channel. Breaking news text was scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Breaking: BBC apologizes for game show error. Gold Rush producers confirm contestant Derek Trotter was incorrectly penalized. MR: Trotter has been contacted and has nobly donated his £50,000 winnings to charity. Del stared at the screen. The letters seemed to burn into his retinas. "Jonathan," Del whispered to the empty room. "He said give the $50,000 to charity. What a nice guy." Rodney fell to his knees, his gladiator helmet rolling across the cheap carpet. Raquel simply turned around and walked back into the bedroom, quietly closing the door. "Yes," Del suddenly shouted, clapping his hands together in a desperate, horrifying display of broken psychology. He refused to accept the reality of what he had just done. He turned to Rodney with a wild, crazed grin. "Who do you people think we are, eh? We're the Trotters. And we're back. Yes, £50,000 to charity. What a tax write-off. This time next year, Rodney, we'll be millionaires." Rodney just sobbed quietly into the carpet, the plastic sword clutched in his hands, knowing that for Trotter's independent traders, the game was finally, truly over. Chapter 9: The Reluctant Philanthropist. The morning sun hit the concrete walls of Nelson Mandela House with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Inside flat 368, the air was thick with the distinct smell of burnt toast and profound regret. Del Boy stood by the window in his tiger print dressing gown, staring out at the Peckham skyline. He was holding a mug of tea that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. Down below, parked haphazardly on the pavement, were 3 white vans with massive satellite dishes strapped to their roofs. Reporters holding microphones were gathered around the main entrance of the estate, trying to bribe local children with 10-pence pieces for directions to the Trotter's flat. "They're calling me the Prince of Paupers," Dell muttered, holding up a copy of the Sun. The front page featured a massive, slightly blurry photo of Dell kicking the podium on Gold Rush, juxtaposed with a headline that screamed, "Bankrupt hero gives away £50,000 lady luck to sick kids." Sick kids, Rodney groaned from the sofa. He had finally managed to remove the gladiator tunic, but was still wearing the leather sandals. He hadn't slept a wink. You didn't just give the money to a generic charity, Dell. The BBC transferred it directly to the Peckham Pediatric Hospital, a hospital for poorly orphans. Well, that's good, isn't it? Dell tried to force a grin, though as I twitched uncontrollably. Good karma. What goes around comes around. Rotters. What comes around is the taxman, Derek, Raquel shouted, marching into the living room, fully dressed and dragging a suitcase. Dell dropped his newspaper. "Raquel, sweetheart, what are you doing with the bag?" "I am going to my mother's," Raquel announced, her voice icy and trembling. "I stood by you when we lost the millions. I stood by you when we lost the house. But watching you throw away the only lifeline we had just to spite Mickey Pierce, I can't take it anymore. Dell, my nerves are completely shot." "Raquel, wait. It's a strategic move," Dell pleaded, scrambling after her as she headed for the door. "Think of the PR. Think of the brand recognition for Trotter's independent traders. We don't have a brand, Derek. We have a garage full of Mandarin spell checkers and a massive tax debt." She yanked the front door open. "I'll call you when I've calmed down, which might be sometime in the next decade." The door slammed shut. The silence that followed was broken only by the aggressive buzzing of the intercom. Rodney dragged himself over and pressed the button. "Yeah, it's the BBC, Mr. Trotter." A cheerful voice crackled through the speaker. "We're here to present the oversized novelty check to the hospital on your behalf. Can Derek come down for some photos?" Rodney looked at his brother. Dell looked like a man who was simultaneously attending his own funeral and being forced to pay for the catering. "Tell Em I'm coming," Dell sighed, straightening his dressing gown. "Might as well look the part. Hand me my gold chain. Rotters." Downstairs, the scene was a circus. Flashbulbs blinded them as Dell stepped out, forcing his famous million-watt smile. He was immediately ambushed by Jonathan Ross himself, who shoved a massive cardboard check for £50,000 into Dell's hands. Derek Trotter, Jonathan beamed to the cameras. The man who put philanthropy before personal gain. Tell us, Derek, what inspired this incredible act of generosity? Dell stared at the giant numbers written on the cardboard. 50,000 pounds. He felt physically sick. He wanted to grab the cardboard, fold it up, and run to the nearest bank. Well, Jonathan, Dell said, his voice straining, I've always believed that money isn't everything. It's about giving back to the community, the little uns, the poorly little uns. They need it more than me. Even though you are officially bankrupt, a reporter shouted from the back. Dell's smile tightened into a grimace. Temporary cash flow issues, that's all. The Trotter empire is merely restructuring. Besides, he who dares wins. And today, the kids are the winners. The crowd applauded. An elderly woman from the estate wiped a tear from her eye. Even Rodney felt a strange, confusing pang of pride before remembering they couldn't afford to pay the electricity bill next week. As the cameras stopped rolling and the crowd began to disperse, Dell pulled the BBC producer aside. Listen, Bill, Dell whispered frantically, clutching the man's lapels. About that money, is it, legally finalized? I mean, couldn't we say I was under emotional duress? Temporary insanity? The producer laughed heartily, clapping Dell on the back. Oh, Derek, you're a joker to the end. Don't worry, the transfer went through electronically at 9:00 a.m. It's fully processed. You're a hero, mate, a national treasure. Dell watched the producer walk away. A national treasure. He felt more like a national disaster. Chapter 10, The Loophole. By Wednesday, the media circus had moved on to a scandal involving a minor royal and a horse, leaving the Trotters to face the harsh reality of their situation. The flat was quiet. Raquel was still at her mother's. Cassandra was working late at the bank to cover the rent. Rodney, fulfilling his duties as managing director of Trotter's Independent Traders, was sitting at the dining table surrounded by piles of tax documents, legal books he'd borrowed from the library, and an empty bottle of aspirin. Dell was lying on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, tossing a single 1-pound coin into the air and catching it. It was the only physical money he had walked away with from Gold Rush. There's gotta be a way out. Rotters, Dell muttered, missing the catch and letting the coin bounce onto the floor. There's always a way out. We just need to find a new angle, a new product. We don't have any capital to buy new products, Dell, Rodney said, aggressively flipping a page in Tax Law for Dummies. We owe the Inland Revenue $48,750 for pounds. We have exactly 12 quid in the company account, and 9 of that belongs to Trigger because I promised him a refund on a dodgy watch. Rodney rubbed his eyes. Wait a minute, he murmured, his finger tracing a line of text in the book. What? Dell asked, sitting up slightly. Gift aid, Rodney said slowly. Charitable donations. Don't talk to me about charitable donations, Dell groaned, lying back down. It depresses me. No, listen to me, Dell. Rodney stood up, pacing the room, his intellectual gears finally clicking into place. You're a bankrupt. You owe the taxman 48 grand, right? Right. But last week, you made a legally documented, publicly verified donation of £50,000 to a registered charity. Don't remind me. Del, in the eyes of the law, charitable donations are tax deductible. If you make a donation through gift aid, or if it's treated as a personal charitable contribution, it offsets your taxable income for the year. Del stared at him, his brow furrowing. But I don't have an income. I'm bankrupt. I owe them debt from previous years. Rodney grabbed a piece of paper and began scribbling frantically. Yes, but the BBC paid you the 50 grand as income from a game show. Technically, for about 5 minutes. You earned £50,000, which the taxman would have immediately seized to pay off your £48,000 debt. Exactly, Del sighed. So I would have been left with £2,000. But Rodney shouted, slamming his hand on the table, because you donated the entire 50 grand directly to charity before the taxman could seize it. You generated a massive tax relief credit under specific insolvency clauses, a monumental philanthropic act that reduces your current year's tax burden to zero, can be backdated to offset existing arrears, provided the donation equals or exceeds the total debt owed. Del slowly swung his legs off the sofa. Speak English, Rodney. Are you telling me what I think you're telling me? Rodney looked up, a manic, disbelieving grin on his face. Del, you gave away 50 grand, but in doing so, you wiped out the 48 grand debt. You don't owe the Inland Revenue a penny anymore. Your bankruptcy conditions can be discharged. The silence in the room was deafening. Del walked over to the table, staring at Rodney's scribbled math as if it were the Rosetta Stone. You mean to tell me, Del whispered, that by accidentally giving away a fortune because I thought Mickey Pierce was winding me up, I actually saved us from ruin? It's a loophole. Rodney laughed, the relief washing over him like a warm shower. A massive, ridiculous, 1 in a million loophole. But yes, the debt is cleared. Trotter's Independent Traders is free and clear. Del threw his head back and let out a roar of laughter that shook the windows of Nelson Mandela House. He grabbed Rodney and hugged him, lifting his lanky brother off the ground. You beautiful GCE holding genius, Del cheered. I knew it. I knew making you managing director was the smartest thing I ever did. Technically, it was a clerical error by the BBC that set it up, but I found the law. Rodney grinned. We're back in business. Rodders, call Raquel. Tell her to pack her bags. She's coming home. Call Cassandra. Tell her we're celebrating down the Nag's Head tonight. Del picked up his 1 pound coin from the floor, kissed it, and put it in his pocket. He who dares wins, Rodney. Even when he loses, he wins. Chapter 11, The Biographer Returns. The celebration at the Nag's Head was legendary. Dell, riding high on the revelation that he was no longer a hunted man by Her Majesty's government, bought drinks for the entire pub on Cassandra's credit card, which she reluctantly allowed just this once. Even Mickey Pierce, who had inadvertently caused the entire charitable donation disaster, was forgiven, mostly because Della enjoyed lording his new philanthropic hero status over the younger man. The next morning, the hangover in the Trotter flat was of biblical proportions. Dell was nursing a cup of black coffee when the telephone rang. Rodney, groaning, picked it up. Trotter's Independent Traders. Managing Director speaking. Please don't shout. Ah, Rodney, it's Justin. The smooth, cultured voice of the biographer echoed down the line. I hope I'm not disturbing you? Rodney sat up. Justin, no, not at all. What can we do for you? Dell perked up, waving his hands to signal Rodney to put the phone on speaker. Well, gentlemen, Justin continued, his voice crackling slightly through the cheap plastic speaker. I must say, I have been following the news regarding Derek's exceptional generosity. Ah, yes, Dell leaned into the phone, adopting his most humble tone. Just doing my bit for the community. Justin, the money's not important. It's the smiles on the little children's faces that count. Quite, Justin said, though he sounded slightly amused. The thing is, Derek, your story has caught fire. The public is fascinated by you. The man who had millions, lost it all, won a fortune back on television, and immediately gave it away to orphans. It's Dickensian. It's poetic. It's true, Dell agreed solemnly. I pitched the angle to my publishers, Justin revealed, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, and they are absolutely desperate to secure the rights to your official biography. They see it as a bestseller. The Peckham Phoenix, The Rise, Fall, and Redemption of Derek Trotter. Dell looked at Rodney, his eyes wide. A book. About me. About both of you. Justin corrected. The Trotter brothers. The unbreakable bond that survived wealth and poverty. How much? Rodney asked, his managing director instincts kicking in before Dell could say something stupid. The publishers are willing to offer a substantial advance, Justin said. Given the current media hype, they are prepared to offer you £50,000 for the exclusive rights. The number hung in the air. £50,000. The exact amount Dell had lost. The exact amount he had given away. It was as if the universe was playing a massive, intricate game of financial ping-pong with their lives. Dell's hand trembled slightly as he reached out and muted the phone. He looked at his brother. 50 grand, Dell whispered. Rotters, we're getting it back. Don't sound too eager, Rodney whispered back, his heart hammering. Let me handle this. I'm the MD. Rodney unmuted the phone, clearing his throat and trying to sound like a man who dealt with 50 grand contracts before breakfast. Well, Justin, that's a very generous offer, Rodney said smoothly. However, given the international interest in Derek's philanthropy, we are currently fielding several offers from rival publishing houses, including Penguin. Dell slapped his forehead, silently mouthing, "Penguin, you plonker." There was a tense silence on the line. Justin cleared his throat. "I see. Well, my publishers are very keen. What if we raise the advance to $60,000 and a 10% royalty on all hardback sales?" Rodney's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. 60,000 and 10%. Is that acceptable, managing director? Justin asked. Rodney looked at Dell. Dell was nodding so hard his neck looked like it might snap. "Yes, Justin," Rodney said, his voice surprisingly steady. "We can accept those terms. Send the contracts over to our legal department. That's flat 368, Nelson Mandela House." "Excellent." Justin beamed. "I look forward to starting the interviews. Gentlemen, good day." Rodney hung up the phone. The flat was dead silent for 3 whole seconds. Then, sheer chaos erupted. Dell grabbed Rodney and started dancing him around the cramped living room, knocking over a pile of ironing and nearly sending the television crashing to the floor. "We did it, rotters!" Dell screamed, tears of joy streaming down his face. 60 grand. We're back in the money. Oh, the Trotters are back. Chapter 12, Full Circle. 3 weeks later, the atmosphere in Peckham had returned to its usual chaotic rhythm. The media vans were gone. The newspaper articles had faded into recycling bins, and the locals had gone back to complaining about the weather and the price of a pint. But for Trotter's independent traders, the world had fundamentally shifted. The advance check from the publishers had cleared. Dell and Rodney stood in the middle of their lock-up garage, surrounded by the familiar smell of damp cardboard and engine oil. The yellow 3-wheeled Reliant Regal van sat in the center, newly washed and polished, though still sporting a slightly dented bumper. "All right, managing director," Dell said, slapping the roof of the van. "What's the financial status?" Rodney pulled out a brand new, genuine leather clipboard. He flipped a page with immense satisfaction. "Well, after paying off the remaining minor debts, treating Raquel and Cassandra to a spa weekend, and putting a hefty deposit into a high-yield savings account." Rodney tapped his pen. "Trotter's Independent Traders is officially operating in the black. We have 20,000 pounds in working capital." "Beautiful." Dell smiled, lighting a cigar and taking a deep drag. "And no taxman breathing down our necks." "No taxman," Rodney agreed. "And the book interviews with Justin start next week. He says he wants to dedicate a whole chapter to my leadership during the crisis." Dell chuckled, blowing a smoke ring into the damp air. "Don't let it go to your head, rotters. You might be the managing director on paper, But remember who found the Harrison watch. Remember who kissed the 50 grand goodbye to save us from the Inland Revenue. You did that by accident, Del, Rodney pointed out dryly. Semantics, Rodney, semantics. History remembers the action, not the intent. Del grinned, adjusting his camel hair coat. He walked over to a stack of cardboard boxes in the corner of the garage and ripped one open. Inside were hundreds of brightly colored plastic contraptions. What are those? Rodney asked, peering into the box. These, my intellectually gifted brother, are self-heating, glow-in-the-dark soup spoons, Del announced proudly. I picked up 1,000 of M from Monkey Harris this morning. A bargain. Rodney sighed, a familiar feeling of exasperation washing over him. It was the feeling of home. Del, nobody wants a glow-in-the-dark soup spoon. Soup is a daytime food, or an evening food eaten with the lights on. Ah, but what about campers, rotters? What about power cuts? What about the late-night raver who needs a quick broth before hitting the club? Del argued, his salesman eyes flashing with the old, familiar fire. We set up the pitch down at the market tomorrow, 2 for a $5. We'll clear the lot by lunchtime. Rodney looked at his brother. He looked at the absurd, useless plastic spoons. He looked at the battered yellow van. They had been millionaires. They had flown in helicopters and drank champagne on yachts. They had touched the very pinnacle of wealth and had fallen all the way back down to the concrete pavements of Peckham. And yet, standing in this freezing, damp garage, Rodney felt a strange sense of peace. They were back where they belonged. The hustle, the banter, the endless, ridiculous pursuit of the next big score. It was their raison d'etre. All right, Rodney smiled, closing his clipboard. 2 for a $5, but I'm driving the van. Fair enough, Governor. Del winked, tossing Rodney the keys. Del walked toward the exit of the garage, pulling the heavy metal door down. The bright London sunlight spilled across his face as he looked out over the sprawling estate. You know, rotters, Del said softly, his voice full of that unshakable, irrational optimism that defined his very soul. What's that, Del? Del Boy turned back to his brother, a massive, genuine smile lighting up his face. This time next year, we'll be millionaires. Chapter 13, Radioactive Soup. The following morning at Peckham Market was brisk, carrying the sort of biting wind that made people walk with their heads down and hands shoved deep into their pockets. Perfect weather, according to Del Boy, for selling a product designed to keep a person's minestrone at an optimal temperature. Del stood atop a hastily erected wooden crate, a brightly colored plastic spoon waving wildly in his right hand. Roll up, Del hollered, his voice cutting through the noise of the market. Don't let the winter freeze your broth. Trotter's Independent Traders is proud to present the culinary marvel of the 21st century, the Apollo 11 of cutlery, the self-heating, glow-in-the-dark soup spoon. A small, largely skeptical crowd had gathered. Among them were Denzel, clutching a polystyrene cup of tea, and Trigger, who was staring blankly at the plastic spoon as if trying to decipher ancient hieroglyphics. "How's it work, Dave?" Trigger asked, turning to Rodney, who was standing a few feet away, looking deeply embarrassed while wearing his managing director badge. Well, there's a chemical compound inside the handle, Trig," Rodney explained quietly, glancing nervously at Dell. "You crack the handle like a glow stick, and a mild exothermic reaction occurs, warming the bowl of the spoon while emitting a phosphorescent glow." Trigger blinked slowly. "Right, but does it work with cereal?" "No. Trigger, you don't want warm milk on your cornflakes," Rodney sighed. "You're missing the point, Trig," Dell interjected, hopping off his crate. "Imagine this. You're out camping in the wilds of Epping Forest. It's pitch black. You're starving. You reach into your knapsack, crack the spoon snap. Suddenly, you have light and a hot meal. It's a lifesaver. It is." Dell snapped the handle of the display spoon to demonstrate. There was a sharp crack, followed by a faint fizzing sound. Slowly, a neon green glow began to emanate from the thick plastic handle. "See," Dell beamed. "Lovely jubbly. That'll be 2 for a $5, ladies and gentlemen." Denzel leaned in, squinting at the spoon. "Dell, why is it fizzing? It sounds like a cheap firework." "That's just the heating element warming up, Denzel," Dell assured him confidently. "It's entirely safe. Top of the range. Manufactured in, well, Taiwan, but using European specifications. Probably." As Dell spoke, the neon green glow began to intensify. It went from a soft, pleasant luminescence to a piercing, radioactive-looking green that lit up Dell's face like an alien in a B-movie. "Dell," Rodney warned, taking a step back, "it's getting really bright." "It's just showing off its power, rotters." Dell laughed nervously, shifting the spoon to his left hand. "Ooh, that is getting a bit warm, actually." Suddenly, the plastic handle began to bulge ominously. A thin wisp of acrid, yellow smoke hissed out of a microfracture near the base of the spoon. It smelled strongly of sulfur and burning rubber. The crowd instinctively took to collective steps backward. "It's fine, perfectly normal," Dell insisted, though he was now holding the spoon away from his body as if it were an unexploded grenade. "Dave," Trigger pointed out calmly, "I think your spoon is melting." Trigger was right. The bowl of the spoon was visibly drooping, dripping hot, neon green plastic onto the pavement where it hissed violently against the damp concrete. "Right, that's the prototype," Dell shouted, tossing the melting, smoking plastic into a nearby puddle, where it sputtered and died in a cloud of yellow steam. "Who wants to buy the finalized version in the box? Guaranteed not to melt under normal soup conditions." At that exact moment, a man in a high-visibility jacket with a clipboard the local council health and safety inspector rounded the corner, drawn by the smell of burning plastic. "Trotter," the inspector barked, "what in God's name are you burning on public property?" "Nothing, Mr. Henderson." Dell smiled innocently, kicking the melted puddle of neon plastic under his wooden crate. Just demonstrating the friction of my patter. Hot stuff, you know." "We're packing up now," Rodney yelled, seizing the moment. He grabbed the remaining boxes of self-heating spoons and shoved them roughly into the back of the three-wheeled van. "Come on, Dell board meeting. Urgent." Dell grabbed his crate, tipped an imaginary hat to the bewildered crowd, and sprinted for the van. As they chugged away from the market, trailing a faint scent of sulfur, Rodney buried his face in his hands. 20 grand in the bank, Rodney moaned. "And you're selling toxic waste at a $5 a pair." "Market research, rotters," Dell coughed, rolling down the window to let the yellow smoke out of his coat. "You never know until you try." Chapter 14, The Creative Process. The following Tuesday, the flat in Nelson Mandela House was transformed into a makeshift literary salon. Justin, the biographer, sat on the floral sofa with a sleek, silver dictaphone resting on the coffee table. He held a legal pad and a pen, looking eager. Del Boy sat opposite him in his plush armchair, a large cigar clamped between his teeth and a crystal glass of what looked like expensive cognac, but was actually a mixture of cheap brandy and watered-down port resting in his hand. Rodney sat on a dining chair in the corner, holding his managing director clipboard, ready to ensure that history was recorded accurately. Cassandra and Raquel were out shopping, leaving the men to their creative process. "Right, Derek," Justin began, clicking his pen. "Let's dive into the early years, the foundation of Trotter's independent traders. I want to capture the grit, the sheer, unadulterated struggle of a young entrepreneur fighting against the system." Dell sighed, gazing out the window with a look of profound nostalgia. "It was tough, Justin. Real tough. Peckham in the 70s wasn't for the faint of heart. Me and Rotters, we had to fend for ourselves. Our dear mom passed away, God rest her soul, and my dad, well, he went out to buy a packet of woodbines and must have taken a wrong turn at New Cross because we never saw him again. A tragic origin," Justin murmured, scribbling furiously. "And how did you survive?" Dell leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dramatic whisper. "I had to use my wits. I had a turf war with the local syndicates. You see, Justin, the briefcase market in South London was controlled by some very heavy people. I'm not saying it was the craze, but let's just say they knew how to use a pair of pliers." Rodney coughed loudly from the corner. "Dell, you bought the briefcases from a bloke named Jiggling Jim who operated out of a shed in Lewisham. The heaviest thing about him was his wife. Justin stopped writing and looked up. Is that true, Derek? Dell shot Rodney a venomous glare before turning back to Justin with a smooth smile. What my brother means, Justin, is that Jiggling Jim was merely a front, a puppet for the international cartels. You have to read between the lines. Justin nodded slowly. I see. And what about your first big score? The moment you realized you had a gift for commerce. Ah, that would be the Great Diamond Exchange of 1982. Dell proclaimed, blowing a cloud of smoke toward the ceiling. I was approached by a mysterious Russian countess. She needed to move a priceless Romanov jewel out of the country. I hid it inside a shipment of inflatable flamingos. Rodney snapped his pen in half. Dell, that never happened. It's a metaphor, Rodney. Dell snapped back. A metaphor for what? Selling 3 boxes of knocked-off swimming pool toys to a youth center. Justin held up a hand, his eyes gleaming with artistic fervor. No, Rodney, let him speak. This is gold, absolute gold. The public doesn't just want facts. Rodney, they want a narrative. They want romance, danger, intrigue. If Derek felt like he was dealing with Russian royalty, then that is his emotional truth. Rodney stared at the biographer in utter disbelief. Emotional truth. He's making it up as he goes along. Last week he told Trigger he invented the internet in the back of the Nag's Head. And who's to say I didn't? Dell challenged, taking a sip of his port mixture. I had the idea for a global network of computers connected by phone lines in 1978. I just couldn't afford the soldering iron to put it together. Justin chuckled, entirely charmed. Derek, your imagination is a testament to the entrepreneurial spirit. Let's move on to the Harrison watch. The moment everything changed. Dell settled back into his chair, entirely in his element. Well, Justin, it was a dark and stormy night. For the next 2 hours, Rodney sat in agonizing silence as Dell wove a tapestry of absolute fiction. According to Dell, Trotter's independent traders had single-handedly negotiated trade embargoes, outsmarted Wall Street tycoons, and narrowly avoided assassination by rival antique dealers. By the time Justin left the flat, his dictaphone was full, and his eyes were wide with the promise of a guaranteed bestseller. Dell, Rodney said exhaustedly as the door clicked shut, when this book gets published, we're going to be a laughing stock. It's a work of total fiction. Rodders, my son, Dell smiled, patting his brother's cheek. It's not fiction. It's literature. And literature, my boy, pays a 10% royalty on hardback sales. Now, grab your coat. We've got a launch party to organize. Chapter 15, The Launch Party. If there was one thing Derek Trotter knew how to do better than anyone else in South London, it was throwing a party with someone else's money. The publisher's advance had afforded them the luxury of renting out the entire back room of the Nag's Head. Dell had transformed the usually dingy pub space into what he believed was a faithful recreation of a Mayfair literary salon, which mostly meant he had draped red velvet curtains over the dartboard and hired a local student to play the cello in the corner. A massive banner hung across the bar reading, "Congratulations, Derek and Rodney, the Peckham Phoenixes." The room was packed with the usual suspects. Denzel was attacking the buffet table, which featured an alarming array of cheese and pineapple hedgehogs. Trigger was staring intently at the cellist, trying to figure out how she was making the big violin sound so sad. Cassandra and Raquel stood near the bar, sipping actual champagne, both wearing new dresses bought with the first installment of the book money. I have to admit, Cassandra smiled, watching Rodney desperately trying to schmooze a man from a local newspaper. He looks happy, even if the book is mostly lies. Dell calls it creative embellishment. Raquel laughed, linking her arm through Cassandra's. I'm just glad we're not running from the taxman anymore, or selling those glowing spoons. Damien found one under his bed yesterday and thought it was a lightsaber. Suddenly, the doors swung open, and Boyke Stroden, accompanied by his wife, Marlene. Boyke, the slick, sneering used car salesman, wore a sharply tailored suit and an expression of profound disdain. Well, Boyke drawled, his voice cutting through the chatter. He let out his trademark machine gun laugh. Dashy. If it isn't the Shakespeare of South London. I thought I'd stepped into the wrong pub, Del Boy. It smells suspiciously like success, combined with cheap aftershave. Dell stepped up to his old rival, straightening his tie. Boyke, glad you could make it to witness literary history. I'd offer you a signed copy, but I know you struggle with anything that doesn't have pictures of engines in it. Marlene giggled, kissing Dell on the cheek. Ignore him. Dell, I can't wait to read it. Is there any romance in it? Oceans of it. Marlene. Dell winked, mostly concerning my tragic, brooding nature. Tragic? Yes. Brooding? No. Boyke sneered, picking up a copy of the book from a display table. The cover featured a dramatic, black and white photo of Dell looking thoughtfully off into the middle distance, with Rodney slightly out of focus in the background. Boyke flipped to a random page and read aloud. And as I stood on the docks of Monte Carlo, the Mediterranean breeze whispering of a £1 million deal, I knew that Peckham would always be my anchor. Dear God, Dell, who wrote this? Barbara Cartland. It captures the mood. Boyke, Dell defended, snatching the book back. You wouldn't understand. You lack the artistic temperament. I lack the ability to lie with a straight face. You mean, Boyke scoffed, though a flicker of genuine jealousy danced in his eyes. The Trotters had bounced back, yet again, landing firmly on their feet. Rodney hurried over, his MD badge polished to a high shine. Gentlemen, the publisher's representative is about to make a speech. Del, you're up next. The room quieted down as a nervous-looking man in a tweed jacket tapped a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, the publisher began. We are gathered here today to celebrate the launch of a truly unique book. When Justin first brought us the transcripts of Derek and Rodney Trotter, we didn't know what to make of it. It defied categorization. Del puffed his chest out proudly. But the publisher continued, a massive smile breaking across his face. We quickly realized we were sitting on a gold mine. The public is hungry for this. They want to laugh. They want the absurdity. And so, I am thrilled to announce that as of this morning, the Peckham Phoenix has entered the Sunday Times bestseller list. The pub erupted in cheers. Del and Rodney hugged, the weight of the past few months finally lifting completely. However, the publisher yelled over the noise. It is my great honor to inform you that the book has debuted at number 3 in the comedy and satire section. The cheering abruptly stopped. Del froze, his pint glass halfway to his mouth. Comedy, Del echoed loudly, staring at the man in tweed. Satire. What do you mean, satire? It's a business biography. It's a gritty tale of survival against the odds. The publisher laughed warmly. Oh, Derek, you're always in character. The critics are calling it a masterpiece of modern working-class surrealism. They think the bit about the Russian countess and the inflatable flamingos is pure comedic genius. Boyke let out a roar of laughter so loud it startled the cellist. He. Satire. You're a comedian, Del Boy. A clown. Rodney buried his face in his hands. I told you. Del, I told you nobody would believe that rubbish. Del stood absolutely still for a moment. He looked at the laughing faces around the room. He looked at Boyke's smug expression. He looked at the giant banner with his name on it. Then Del looked at the massive, cardboard mock-up of the book cover, which clearly featured a small, golden sticker reading, a hilarious romp, The Guardian. Slowly, the shock faded from Del's face, replaced by a slow, calculating smile. He turned to the publisher. Number 3 in the country, you say? Yes, Derek, and climbing. And the 10% royalty on hardback sales. Del continued, his business brain whirring at light speed. Does that still apply to books sold in the comedy section? Absolutely, the publisher nodded. Money is money, Derek. Del turned back to Boyke, his million-watt smile returning with a vengeance. He raised his glass high in the air. Well, you heard the man. Del shouted to the pub. A bestseller is a bestseller. Who cares what shelf they put it on? The Trotters are officially men of letters. Drinks are on the house. The pub erupted again. The momentary awkwardness washed away in a tide of free beer and good cheer. Rodney walked over to his brother, shaking his head with a mixture of disbelief and deep, enduring affection. You really don't care that they think we're a joke. Del put an arm around Rodney's shoulder, pulling him close. He looked around the pub at Raquel laughing with Cassandra, at Trigger trying to eat a cocktail sausage with a toothpick, at Boyke paying for his own top-shelf whiskey because Dell had secretly cut off his tab. Rotters, Dell said softly, his eyes twinkling. They can call us clowns. They can call us satirists. They can call us whatever they bloody well like, as long as they spell the name right on the royalty check. Dell raised his glass toward the ceiling, the undisputed king of his own ridiculous, beautiful world. He who dares, Rodney, Dell whispered, a genuine smile on his face.